All right, people, Mr. Right here with Lesson 8 for the flute with Tamaja Ammons here to help me out. Today we're going to be talking about single eighth notes and eighth note rest. In Lesson 7, we learned how eighth notes divided each beat into two equal parts, the downbeat and the upbeat. In those eighth notes always appeared in groups of two joined together by a single bar, like right here. These two eighth notes joined by a single bar. This guy occurs on the downbeat. This guy occurs on the upbeat. But what if we only want to play a single eighth note? And by the way, I'm so sorry, this is spelled incorrectly. There's supposed to be an H-E-I-G-H-T-H. Same thing here. I'll fix that later. But what if we only want to have a single eighth note all by itself? Well, that means, like this guy right here, well, that means there needs to be a single eighth note rest to take up the other half of the beat. This lesson focuses on that concept and how they relate to the constant downbeats and upbeats in every measure. The first note is an eighth note E, all by itself. See him right here? He's all by himself. Notice that the bar that once connected it to another eighth note has curled up towards the stem. See that right there? He's all curled up. Imagine if we sliced off this second eighth note right there. This little bar, say we cut it off right there, that little stem that connected it right there, that bar has curled up towards the stem like that. All right? So its loneliness has caused it to draw up into a fetal position, sadness. So we've got this eighth note on the downbeat, and then we have an eighth note rest on the upbeat here, this little small eighth note rest, and it looks like a deformed seven. Let me talk about that here in this next paragraph. The single eighth note only takes up the first half of the first beat. Notice that the eighth note is immediately followed by a slightly deformed seven, right? That guy right there. This deformed seven is an eighth note rest. It occupies the second half of beat one. So here's the first half of beat one. There's the second half of beat one, thus restoring peace and harmony to the universe and the space-time continuum. Below in exercise 2, you'll see the strange sight of eighth notes reaching around the despicable eighth note rest that have tried to come between them. Now, so right here, you've got an eighth note in number 2 and another eighth note. They're joined together by that bar, but there's an eighth note rest stuck in between there. Sometimes you'll see it written this way. Sometimes there'll be just like a little curled up bar right there. All right, or sometimes in music notation, it's called a flag. So, you'll see it sometimes this way. Excuse me, sometimes this way up here, and sometimes down here the way you see it in number 2. So number 1, you'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. And remember, this eighth note rest is only taking up a half of the beat. So these together are beat 1. You got to immediately jump to beat 2, like 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2, 3, 4. See, same thing here. So now in number 2, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. You're basically just playing short notes on the downbeat while you're resting on the upbeats. And so let's try number 1, where we're going 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Right? So let's try number 1. 2, 3, 4. 2, 4. 2, 3, 4. Awesome. So now in number 2, we're playing eighth notes on the downbeat. We're resting on the upbeats. So there'll be just short little notes like da, 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 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Now these notes right here are short, but in the second half of the measure, you got straight quarter notes. They take up the whole beat. 3, 4. And then we're followed by 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, right? Just look at it as a whole word. And then in the next measure, 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, like that. So let's try number 2. 2, 3. 2, 3. Awesome. Now, look at number 3, straight quarter notes on the downbeat. They take up the whole beat by themselves. Then in number 3, we're going to rest on the downbeats and play on the upbeats, like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4 and 2 and 3 and 4. And it's important to keep counting in your mind what beat we're on so you don't get lost and play too many of these puppies. All right? So let's try number 3. 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3. 2, 3. Cool. Now look at number 4. Now you'll notice that was a pretty tricky exercise right there. That might take some practice. So look at number 4. Number 4, you're going to 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and see, you're playing like in the first measure, you're resting on the downbeat of 3 and playing, you're popping the upbeats, right? 1 and 2 or 3 and 4 and it does pretty much the same thing in different places where you're just resting on the downbeats and playing just the upbeats. So let's try number 4. 2, 3. 2, 3. Wonderful. And then here at number 5, we have that same, you start soft on the crescendo and you crescendo in, drive it in to that second measure where we'll go from the beginning, we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3 and. So it's on the and of 3. If you're counting in your mind, that second measure will go 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and like that. And later on in measure, let's say this is the first measure, measure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, measure 5, you're going to go 1, 2, and 4, 1, 2, and 4, and 1, 2, and 4, 1. So let's try number 5. 2, 3. Fantastic. Good. And then number 6, it goes 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, rest, rest. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, rest, and 1, 2, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, off. So let's try number 6. 3, 4. All right. Fantastic. So now that should give you a very good idea as to how to play Lesson 8 for flute.